Today we are moving away from our solving equations to graphing. We're going to be working today on two very specific root equations. All of them have graphs, but the only two that we are focusing on, as you can see, are y equals the square root of x and y equals the cube root of x. We're going to be using a lot of the same shifting skills that we've talked about with all of the graphs that we've done. But before we can talk about shifting skills, we always need to know, what does that original picture look like? So we're going to go ahead and make an XY table like we would have back in Algebra 1. Typically, when we're picking our x values, we use as small, close to 0 as possible. Numbers like -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. And so as we know, to find the y values, we put the x value in the equation. So you need to pick up your calculators, and you should type in your calculator the square root of -2. When you do that, though, the problem is calculator spits out an error. Hopefully, at some point in math, you learned that you cannot take the square root of a negative number. So we have to adjust our numbers here. I'm going to erase these. Negatives don't work. So we're going to use 0 and we're going to use 1. But instead of just doing 2, 3, 4, we're going to be smart here. When we're graphing, whole numbers are a lot easier to graph than decimals. So the numbers that I'm going to put in this table for my x values are going to be numbers that have nice square roots. So the other numbers I'm going to use that I know have nice square roots would be 4. The next smallest number that has a nice square root is 9. And the next smallest one is 16. So all we have to do now is use our calculators to square root each one of those. Well, the square root of 0 is 0. Go ahead and type in your calculator the square root of 1, if you don't already know it. The square root of 1 is 1. The square root of 4, I'm hoping most of you know, is 2. The square root of 9 is 3. And the square root of 16 is 4. These will be much nicer for us to graph than if we had ended up with some big, long, ugly decimals that just would have been a nightmare. So let's take a look at plotting these points. 0, 0, as we all know, is directly in the middle. 1, 1 is right 1 and up 1. 4, 2 is right 4, up 2. 9, 3 is right 9 and up 3. Unfortunately, the other one doesn't fit, and that's okay. I'm not worried about it. As you can see, this is not a straight line. There is a slight curve to it, but it doesn't have arrows at both ends. If I connect these points with a nice smooth curve, the left side where this 0 point was, there's no arrow there, because as we already talked about, we can't have negatives. However, the other side, as we already have seen up here in the table, 16 keeps going. So I'm going to go a little further, and I'm going to put an arrow at the end of that graph. This is going to be one of the two main graphs that you're dealing with today. Let's look at the other one. Now, cube roots are a little different. We can cube root a negative number. But I want to do this the same way and be smart, the same way I did with square roots. I don't want decimals. I want numbers that are going to have nice cube roots. The 5 numbers that have nice cube roots, 0 is the easiest. That's going to go in the middle. 1 and -1 both have nice cube roots, as do +8 and -8. So every calculator that I've seen should have a cube root button. Even if you're using a calculator on your phone, you should be able to turn it sideways and you should see a cube root button. The cube root of -8 is -2. The cube root of -1 is -1. The cube root of 0 is 0. the cube root of 1 is positive 1, and the cube root of 8 is positive 2. So let's take a look at what these points make us. Negative 8, negative 2 would be left 8 and down 2. Negative 1 would be left 1 and down 1. 0, 0 is obviously in the middle. 1, 1 would be right 1 and up 1. And 8, 2 would be right 8 and up 2. Now, as you can see, again, this is not a straight line either. These have curves. The easiest way to draw these is to go from the center and curve to the right. And yes, there's an arrow on that end. And then to go back to the center and curve down and to the left. That's the easiest way to make them look nice. It kind of looks like you took the letter S and stretched it out. I should never see any straight pieces on either one of these graphs. They are meant to be curved. So now that we know what the basic graphs look like, we're going to turn the page. We're going to look at the shifting rules that we are already familiar with. Well, we've seen numbers like C here in the parentheses. And as we've learned in the past, if C is positive, we actually go left. And if C is negative, we actually go right. That should be nothing new at this point. We've done plenty of shifting with V's, with U's, with the log graphs and the exponential graphs. We've done plenty of shifting. The D on the outside, we learned if it's a positive D, you go up. And if it is a negative D, you go down. Now, if we look over here, this first box points to the little negative sign in the front, and yes, that's a negative. We've seen negatives before. Negatives are what make things go down instead, or the fancy word that we've used is reflect or flip over the x-axis. So these are the three different kinds of shifts that you are going to see when we are graphing in the notes and in the homework. So now let's look at some step-by-step instructions for how to do this. So how to graph on paper without a calculator with pencil and paper. 1, you're going to graph the parent function with the 3 required points. So we're going to go back. Oh, and notice here, be sure to look at which root you are given. I'm going to go back to our parents. I'm going to go back here. There's 3 points on each one of these that we are going to use as the most important points. On the square roots, we're going to use these, which on the graph would be those 3 points. On the cube root, we're going to use these. Basically, we're using the smallest points so that they're closest to 0. So we're talking about those 3. But remember, even if we're not using all of them, you still need to make sure that everything looks curved as you make your graphs. So let's go back to the instructions. So now we know what those 3 required points are. Your second step is to do the reflection. Now, the reflections are not always going to be there. You only reflect if there is a negative in front. If there isn't a negative in front, you just skip step 2. And then the third step is shifting the graph left, right, up and down, according to the rules that we wrote down and that we already know. So we're going to take a look at, there's a total of 6 examples. We're going to do 4 of them together, and then you're going to do the last 2 on your own. So let's take a look at a pair of examples. So on example 1, as you can see, this is a square root graph. So when step 1 says graph the required points, we are talking about 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, and 4, 2. Those are always your required points for a square root. So 0, 0, 1, 1, 4, 2. You got to be able to graph those very easily. I do expect to see this graph nice and curved on your paper. That's step 1. Step 2, we're looking to see if there is a negative in front to see if we have to reflect. As you can see, there is no negative in front. We're skipping step 2. Step 3 is our shifting. I'm going to look here. I see a positive 4. Since it's positive, it goes left 4. I look over here, I see a negative 6. Since it's negative, I go down 6. All I'm going to do is take all 3 points, count left 4 and down 6. So I'm going to start here at 0, 0. Left 4, down 6. Go to 1, 1. Left 4, down 6. Go to 4, 2. Left 4, down 6. So that's all there is to the shifting. You have your original points, you shifted them, you make it look just like the one you drew. Pretty easy. Hopefully you're looking and thinking, oh, I can do this. Let's look at B together. Now, as you can see, we see a little cube root here. New set of points. Our 3 important points are negative 1, 0, 0, and 1, 1. So let's go ahead and graph those. Left 1, down 1. Stay in the middle. Right 1, up 1. Now, because we don't have those extra points, people want to get lazy here and they want to make a straight line. If I see any straight lines at all, automatically you will lose points. You go from 0, 0, and you curve to the right, and you go from 0, 0, and you curve to the left. Notice this middle area does not look straight. They are both curved. It's important. Step 2, we're looking for a negative. There's no negative here, so we're skipping on to shifting. Negative 2 inside actually goes right 2. A positive 5 outside goes up 5. So take your 3 points. I'm going to start with negative 1, negative 1. I'm going to go right 2 and up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go to 0, 0. Right 2, up 5. 1, 1, right 2, up 5. Again, yes, they look like a straight line, but I expect you to start at the middle and curve to the right, go back to the middle, and curve. That's a bad curve. And curve to the left. Everything must be curved in the middle. So hopefully you're looking and thinking, those aren't too bad. I plot a couple of points, I shift them. So let's see what happens when we put in the flipping idea. Let's look at example 2. We're doing these together as well. So the first thing I look at, this is a cube root, as you can see right there. So my 3 points are negative 1, 0, 0, and 1, 1. So left 1, down 1, 0, 0 is in the middle, right 1, up 1. From the center, curve to the right. From the center, curve to the left. So that's our beginning graph. Those, after a few times, you'll be real quick at those. Step 2, do we have a negative? As you can see right here, that is a negative. Here's what happens. We're going to take all 3 of these points and we are going to flip them to the other side of the x-axis. So I'm going to change colors to make this a little easier to see. So let's start right here. This point is down 1 on the x-axis. So I'm going to go above the x-axis 1. They are a mirror image now of each other. The one in the middle, he's not going to move. He's on the mirror. He stays on the mirror. This one was above the x-axis by 1, so it's going to be below the x-axis by 1. And then when we start at 0, 0, and curve to the right, and go back to 0, 0, and curve to the left, it should look like we took the red one and flipped it over. Now that we've done that, we're going to look at our shifting that we have left. I'll change colors again to make it a little easier. This right here is the only shifting number. It is after the radical. Okay, that is after the cube root. It is not under the cube root, it is only after, which means it's the letter D, which means we go up 3 because it's positive. Now here's where students make their mistakes. The graph that we are shifting up 3 is not the red one. It's not the beginning graph. It's the one that's flipped. So this blue graph, all 3 of these dots are going to go 1, 2, 3 up. Go to the middle one, 1, 2, 3 up. Go to the last one, 1, 2, 3 up. And so then curve to the right, go back to the center, curve to the left. And yes, if you would like to use multiple colors on your homework, if that's easier for you to have a beginning color and a flipped color and a shifted color, by all means, that's perfectly fine. So as you can see, this one required 3 steps. Let's take a look at part B, and then you're going to have a couple to try on your own. B is a square root, so we're back to 0, 0, 1, 1, and 4, 2. So 0, 0, right 1, up 1, right 4, up 2. And again, nice, smooth curve. Does this one have any negatives? No. This one's not being flipped at all. There's no negative. We're looking for our shifting. We only have one shifting number. This plus 7 is inside the square root. Since it's inside, it is a left and a right. And since it's positive, it goes left 7. So each one of these count to the left 7. Make a new dot. Go to the next one. Make a new dot. Go to the next one. Count 7. Make a new dot. Then, nice, smooth curve. All right, so at this point, I think you're ready to try 2 of them on your own. So go ahead, go on to example 3, pause the video, start it back up when you're ready to check. All right, let's see how you did. A, this is a square root graph, so we have zeros. Whoa, don't know what that was. So as I said, we have 0, 0, 1, 1, and 4, 2. 0, 0, 1, 1, and 4, 2. Did we have a flip? As you can see right here, hopefully you saw that negative. That does mean that these three points flip. Well, 0, 0 doesn't change. This point was 1 above the x-axis. It's now 1 below the x-axis. This point was 2 above. It's now 2 below. So as you can see, we now have a mirror of our red graph down, which is now our blue graph. You also had some shifting to do here. You had a plus or a minus 2 inside that should have made it go right 2. And you have a minus 4 on the outside, which should have made it go down 4. Hopefully you remembered that it's the flipped graph that you move. It's the blue one. So from the first blue dot, I'm going to go right 2 and down 4. From the second blue dot, I'm going to go right 2 and down 4. From the third blue dot, I'm going to go right 2 and down 4. Then, starting here, nice, smooth curve to the right. Hopefully you got that one right. Let's check the next graph. This is a cube root, so you have -1, -1, 0, 0, 1, 1. So -1 is there, 1, 1's in the middle, or sorry, 0, 0's in the middle, and 1, 1 is over there. Smooth curve to the right, and go back to 0, 0, smooth curve to the left. Let's look at our shifts. I'm sorry, is there a negative? No. So that's why we're moving on to our shifts. We have a +6 on the inside, which would mean left 6. We have a +3 on the outside, which would mean up 3. So I'm going to start with my first dot. I'm going to count to the left 6 and up 3. I'm going to go to my second one. I'm going to count to the left 6 and up 3. And to my third one, count to the left 6 and up 3. Start with the center one. Smooth curve to the right. Back to the center. Smooth curve to the left. So hopefully you got that one right as well. These were meant to be pretty easy graphs. At this point, you might want to maybe try a couple of your homework problems if you want a little more practice. And remember, next class, you will have some time to work on your homework.